Let's take a look at that KD ratio. We're at 2.172. If that number sounds familiar, it should, because this is the exact same stat page that I posted on my other video that I released today, January 26th, Monday, 2026. Today I saw a tweet about what's going on in Minneapolis that really kind of incented me to put together this video quickly. I'm not going to have a long introduction. I'm not even going to monetize this. I'm sick and tired of looking at commercials on my videos. When, it's funny. At first I was like $20 from once I got monetized. Then it went to 30. Then it went to 25. Then it went down to 20. Now I'm at like $16. I'm sorry. I'm not going to torture you guys for $16. I'm going to stop monetizing the videos. At least until I can start getting, the viewership up where it needs to be. Anyways, I saw this tweet. I'm going to read the tweet and we're going to comment on it. It's basically about, the riots / protests / insurrection that's going on up in Minneapolis. So without further ado, here it is. Is there an insurrection in Minneapolis? You're listening to the Raging Sea Bears podcast. This is an unscheduled podcast drop, primarily because I saw this posting on X by Eric Schwalm. I'll put a link to the posting in the comments or the description. And given everything that's going on in Minneapolis, I think this was kind of important that I get this out, that people can hear an opinion from a Chief Warrant Officer in the United States Army's Green Berets, right? If he's a Chief Warrant Officer, this guy's got 20 plus years in. And he worked in counterinsurgency. So let me read the post. I'll let you know when I pause for my own interjection. But this is Eric Schwalm. It was posted on Sunday, January 25th, 2026. It says, quote, "As a former Special Forces warrant officer with multiple rotations running counterinsurgency operations, both hunting insurgents and trying to separate them from sympathetic populations, I've seen organized resistance up close. From Anbar to Helmand, the pattern is familiar. Spotters, cutouts, dead drops or modern equivalents, disciplined comms, role specialization, and the willingness to absorb casualties while bleeding the stronger force slowly. What's unfolding in Minneapolis right now isn't protest. It's low-level insurgency infrastructure built by people who clearly studied the playbook. Signal groups at 1,000-member cap per zone, dedicated roles, mobile chasers, plate checkers logging vehicle data into shared databases, 24/7 dispatch nodes vectoring assets, salute-style reporting. That salute stands for size, activity, location, unit, time, and equipment on suspected federal vehicles. Daily chat rotations and timed deletions to frustrate forensic recovery. Vetting processes for new joiners. Mutual aid from sympathetic locals. Teachers providing cover. Possibly PD tip-offs on license plate lookups. Home base coordination points. Rapid escalation from observation to physical obstruction or worse. This isn't spontaneous outrage. This is C2, which stands for Command and Control, with redundancy, OPSEC, hygiene, and task organization that would make an SF team sergeant nod in recognition. Replace ICE agents with occupying coalition forces, and the structure maps almost one-to-one to early-stage urban cells we hunted down in the mid-2000s. The most sobering part? It's domestic. Funded, trained somewhere, and directed by people who live in the same country they're trying to paralyze law enforcement in. When your own citizens build and operate this level of parallel intelligence and rapid response network against federal officers, complete with doxing, vehicle pursuits, and harassment that's already turned lethal, You're no longer dealing with civil disobedience. You're facing a distributed resistance that learned the lessons of successful insurgencies. Stay below the kinetic threshold most of the time, force overreaction when possible, maintain popular support through narrative, and never present a single center of gravity. I spent years training partner forces to dismantle exactly this kind of apparatus. Now pieces of it are standing up in American cities, enabled by elements of local government and civil society that should keep every thinking American awake at night. Not because I want escalation, but because history shows these things don't de-escalate on their own once the infrastructure exists and the cadre believe they're winning the information war. We either recognize what we're actually looking at, or we pretend it's still just quote-unquote activism until structures harden and spread. Your call, America, but from where I sit, this isn't January 26 politics anymore. It's phase one of something we've spent decades trying to keep off our own soil. To this, there was a response from Rycatcher 0421. He says, "Well done here. Question though, is it your opinion that the DOJ doesn't already know this, or that they do know this and are letting things reach a certain point before acting, or something else?" Question mark. Eric responds, "In my view, the phrase, 'the horse is out of the barn,' is considered dangerous by senior leaders in the United States government. It immediately shifts the focus to finger-pointing and excuses. Essentially, everyone sees the horse is out of the barn, but nobody is willing to admit to it or do anything about it out of fear of being held responsible for it. We saw exactly this in 2003. Those of us on the ground repeatedly warned senior leadership, quote, 'This is an insurgency.' Instead, the official line was, quote, 'disorganized remnants of Saddam's regime.' No C2, remember that's command and control. No funding, no real intel capability. It took until 2006, after multiple casualties, for them to admit what we already knew. Calling it an insurgency early would have forced a mission pivot, resource surge, and doctrinal shift long before the enemy consolidated. Delaying the label let the problem metastasize. To your question, yes, I believe senior DOJ leaders already recognize this for what it is, a low-level distributed insurgency infrastructure operating domestically against federal authority. They refuse to say it publicly or act decisively, either due to personal/political preferences, pressure from higher national command authority, or a calculated decision to let it develop to the point that it is absolutely can no longer be ignored. Meanwhile, the horse continues to roam free." You know, something that comes to mind, when I read something like this is, especially when he talks about the horse out of the barn, is our federal government seeding this discontent so that it can reach a boiling point where the national public then cries for military intervention, when the common American citizen who just wants to live their life in peace starts crying for martial law to establish peace in this country. And I think a great example that many of you may have already seen the movies of was in Star Wars, the very first prequel series, still under George Lucas before Disney destroyed it, where Senator Palpatine actually orchestrated the Clone Wars. Right? He's the one that pulled the strings for the insurrection, and then led the charge from the Republic to crush it with overwhelming military force, and then declare the Republic dead, and the Empire was created. Sometimes I see these Hollywood movies where there's truth being buried into the story. Captain America: Winter Soldier is a good one. In fact, I'm going to bring that up on the whole online social media / echo chamber discussion that I want to do. But I want you guys to think about this, right? As I said, I'm trying to put out content that is not the common knowledge. This is not the common narrative. This is I want you guys who's listening to me to think about this. Start your critical thinking. Put batteries back in your gray matter, and let's fire those suckers up and start thinking about this. I cannot believe that this is an organic protest up in Minneapolis. It doesn't feel like it. It doesn't smell like it. And in fact, even that woman Good that died, in her car was training material on how to resist ICE. Somebody is coordinating this. Something is mobilizing these people. And when we go back to the thought of an echo chamber, where these people keep getting fed the same information over and over and over and over and over ad infinitum, and to the point where their beliefs become a dogma because they never hear the opposing point of view. So I gave this example to my wife this morning. If you were told repeatedly that a fetus is nothing but a clump of cells, that it is not a human being, it is just a clump of cells, so an abortion means nothing. And I don't care where you stand on the pro-life, pro-choice. I'm trying to make a point. If you hear just one side all the time, it's just a clump of cells, it's just a clump of cells, it's just a clump of cells, and you're surrounded by people who tell you it's just a clump of cells, it's just a clump of cells, it's just a clump of cells, you're reinforcing a belief in your head by surrounding yourself with other people with similar beliefs in their head, and you're never exposed to a counterpoint. So that when you come across someone who's pro-life that comes up to you and says, it's not a clump of cells, it's a baby, your first reaction is, and I talked about this before, when you start challenging people's belief systems, they can turn violent. Well, if this person who believes in pro-choice because it's just a clump of cells then meets someone who is pro-life who says, no, it is not just a clump of cells, it is a human being with its own unique genetic code that has a heartbeat and moves, and in 9 months will be a living human being, they resist and can resist violently to it. They accuse the other person as being radical or insane, or insert whatever adjective you want here. But it's the same thing here. If you are told repeatedly, ICE is the Gestapo, ICE is the Gestapo, ICE is the Gestapo, Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler, Trump is Hitler, and you're surrounding yourself with these people that just keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again, and you express your opinion on social media, and you've got 1,000 other people coming back going, I hear you, that's right, thumbs up, I love your post, whatever. You're reinforcing that belief in you. But if you ever stopped and read The Rise and Fall of the Third Reich by William Schreiner, you'll know full well that what is going on in this country is not fascist. The fact is that the people who suppress free speech with violence, that's fascism. That's how the Nazis operated, right? When you express your point of view that is opposing to what they're being echo chambered into believing, and they turn violent against you, that is fascist. That is National Socialism. That is a Nazi. Free speech is the foundation of all democracies. You have your opinion, I have my opinion. Let's talk it out and we'll meet a common consensus. When you silence your opposing voice, that is totalitarianism / fascism, because the other person is not being allowed to talk. This is something that I'm really thinking I need to do another video on, but this one, I'm just doing this quick drop. I saw that post on X by a Chief Warrant Officer, Green Beret, who's dealt with counterinsurgency for over 20 years, give his opinion on what's going on in Minneapolis, and I think it is extremely important that people stop looking at it as a quote-unquote organic protest and see it for what it could possibly and in all probability is an insurrection. And that's it for this one. This is Seabear, out.